APA. So I, on behalf of Indian Pharmaceutical Association Kerala State Branch, I am very much happy to welcome Dr. T.R. Krishnan to this webinar series convened by Indian Pharmaceutical Association. And thank you, others. And please listen carefully, and you can ask the questions through chat box and also directly to Dr. Krishnan after the session. And I wholeheartedly welcome Dr. T.R. Krishnan to this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the detailed introduction, Dr. Pradeep, and also Dr. Jayashekhar for inviting me. The IPA Kerala State Branch is doing an immense amount of job. I'm kind of involved in a small way. I am an IPA member. So in that way, it gives me a privilege to be part of this group. And the more we do for the students, the better it is, because they are the future. So I will share the slide right now. So you have to confirm that you can see it.
You can see, sir.
You can see it, right? Okay. So I'll just move it to the next one. And can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So before we start, I would just like to again thank the Kerala State IPA and all the organizers and the students who are participating today. WHO pre-qualification is an important topic, especially because Dr. Jayashekhar said that they are going to have WHO as one of the topics in this month of August. So I thought, why not talk about pre-qualification? Because I have participated in pre-qualification as a reviewer. So I won't read the abstract, which is, I think you might have already had it somewhere, but I will talk about the portions of the abstract in the slides. So Dr. Jayashekhar and Pradeep, can you hear me well and see the slides?
I hear, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, very clear.
Okay, anytime you have any difficulty in listening to me, please let me know. And I would like to keep the session informal, giving an opportunity for students and others to ask questions either through the chat box or directly. So today we are going to, hopefully in the next 35 minutes, 40 minutes, something like that, we will talk about the introduction, the benefits of PQ, that is pre-qualification. PQ will stand for pre-qualification, both for the Indian industry as well as the pharmacy graduates. I know that there are some MPharm students here who have got regulatory science. They may be aware of ICH. Some of the students also may be aware of ICH, but I will take a couple of slides. I will introduce them the concept of ICH, because the entire pre-qualification is based on ICH guidance. And there is an increased importance, thankfully, in the IPC curriculum. Then we'll talk about the type of products covered by PQ, the workflow, and what kind of preparation is done by the companies as well as the WHO as a reviewer. So WHO created pre-qualification in response to procurement agency of WHO member states for assuring quality of health products. So this is by applying the quality assurance mechanisms. So WHO did not create anything new. They have only taken what is existing already by the international regulatory agencies. Health Canada played a very crucial role. Many of the processes and guidances within WHO is based on Health Canada's policies. One of our senior reviewers was in charge of WHO, and several of Health Canada's reviewers used to go there as experts to review the material, the dossier that has been submitted by the company. That's how I got a chance to go and participate in WHO. After my retiring, I had taken some contract with them. So pre-qualification is a standardized quality assessment procedure to evaluate the acceptability of pharmaceutical products for purchase by United Nations agencies. Now, once it is pre-qualified, each country, let's say these are used more by the developing countries because they don't have a very strong regulatory system. So they have to do their own assessment of the stability of the supplier, the reliability of the supplier before they can decide to procure from those companies. So WHO does not assure all those things. They only assure about quality standards. So they follow the scientific guidance of ICH. And I will talk about ICH in a few minutes. Indian manufacturers, they have a significant number of PQs for various products like in HIV, AIDS, malaria, tuberculosis, and few others, diarrhea and all that. We will see that more in detail. Some of the examples of companies that are included in the PQ are Sun Pharma, Reddy's Laboratory, Aurobindo, Cipla, Lupin, Zydus, Glenmark, McLeod's, Eisai, Vacure, Abbott, GSK. These are some of the examples just to let the students and everybody else know the involvement of Indian industry. So if there are so many Indian industries who are submitting PQ on a regular basis, if the pharmacy graduates or the BPharm students or MPharm students, they get a knowledge of the pre-qualification, they can put it in the resume that they know about it, they have learned about it, and they can perhaps seek employment in the pharmaceutical industry. So this will help them if they know about it. Okay. So a couple of slides about ICH, International Council for Harmonization. This was formed about 30 years ago, 35 years ago actually, 1990, by the pharmaceutical industry as well as the regulatory agency of North America, Europe, Japan, and beyond. Now there are countries like China and Australia, Singapore. They are all involved in it. A CDSCO, like the Indian counterpart, is also involved in it, and they are going through the complete process of becoming a regular member. So what is the mission of ICH? They want to harmonize all the requirements, or at least as much as possible in the requirements, between the different countries and the industry. Otherwise, what used to happen, every country will make their own requirements. And as a result, the pharmaceutical companies, suppose they want to have the drug product approved in India versus US versus Canada versus Australia, they have to submit different dossier to different companies. Such a duplication of work, and there will be subtle differences between them. But every country will put their own way of their own templates, so that used to become a major source of disharmony. A lot of resources were lost. So in the last 35 years, ICH has done a wonderful work in setting guidances in quality, safety, efficacy, and multidisciplinary. I was myself involved in ICH for about 5 to 6 years as a Health Canada expert in Q8, which is pharmaceutical development, Q8, 9, 10 for implementation, and Q12, which is the life cycle. So you see, for in quality, there's stability, impurity, analytical method validation, pharmaceutical drug development, GMP. In safety, there is toxicity, carcinogenicity, genotoxicity. These are just some of the examples. And in efficacy, there is clinical trials, pharmacovigilance, and multidisciplinary. There is a CTD format, which is a template that was developed. So the beauty of this whole ICH guidance is it is done over each guidance takes about 5 years to finalize. It goes in step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, this is done with complete agreement between the industry and the regulatory agency. And they are all on the table discussing the guidance. So at the end of the day, both are in agreement. So let's take the example of, so this is the CTD, general CTD format. So there is some amount of, in module 1, some regional information can be included, which is slightly different in US versus India versus Europe. There are some differences that can be included in the regional administration information. But module 2, which is quality overall summary, and module 3, which is quality, we are going to talk more about module 2 and module 3. They are identical in different countries. And the CTD format also provides a template where all the companies can give their input in electronic format. So can you imagine, previously there used to be all kind of jokes about each submission, both clinical as well as quality, will fill a room. The number of files will be in excess of 200 files. And somebody has to go through this. So there was enormous amount of work involved, which was all made easier by electronic submission. India follows CTD format. So all the students, you should please make a note that India also follows ICH, India follows CTD format. So if you learn about this, you can serve Indian companies. Here is an example of impurity profiles of drug products. This is directly related to the safety of the patients. After all, what is the job of a pharmacist? The basic job of a pharmacist is to serve the patient, bring the drug, good quality drug to the patient, explain all the side effects so that the benefits outweigh the side effects. This can be done through industry, can be done through hospital, in community pharmacy, education, and as a regulatory sense. So the pharmacist is the only person in the whole gamut of qualified people, biologists, biochemists. Pharmacist is the only one which can play multiple roles like that. They can specialize. After doing BPharm, they can specialize in different fields. So in this example, see, for example, there is a threshold for degradation products and new products. So there is a reporting threshold of point. If the dose is less than 1 gram, then the reporting threshold is 0.1%. So if it is less than 1.1% of an impurity, they don't have to report it. If it is more than 0.1%, then they have to report it. If it is more than 1%, it was between 1% or 5 microgram, then they have to identify what kind of impurity it is. And if the amount of impurity goes beyond that, like for example, in more than 1% in the qualification threshold, then they not only have to identify, they also have to qualify it. Qualify means they have to do tox studies to make sure they are safe at the level the impurity is available. So can you imagine if each country is providing, let's say you take an example of a beta blocker or a blood pressure reducing drug, which is common in most of the countries. Now, every country will have their own information, scientific information based on some reported literature, and somebody would say 0.1%, another would say 0.2%. So there was such a disharmony. Now, based on scientific evidence and scientific data, eventually they came up with this harmonized approach of reporting threshold, identification threshold, and qualification threshold. This is just one example. So just to give you this is just to give you an example of what ICH has done. In the same way, ICH has done for stability, analytical method validation, what kind of validation should be done, pharmaceutical development, all these things put together. There is, if you go to ich.org, you go to ich.org, you get all the guidance documents, training material, and things like that. It's free of charge. There is nothing to be paid. So that's why you have a textbook right in front of you. And there are lots of people who are providing online training. Either it is free or it is some part of some organization. Anyway, the information is right in front of you. You have to find the time to do them, study them if you are interested in this field. But because ICH has been included by PCI, every pharmacist has to have a minimum knowledge about ICH. Now let's come to WHO's pre-qualification, which is our main topic. So PQ list does not just because it has been listed in the PQ list does not imply that WHO has approved it, because it's not a regulatory agency. WHO is not a regulatory agency. They cannot approve a product, but they can kind of by putting them in the list, it gives the company some kind of guarantee that they are okay and they can move forward. So it's a kind of a seal of a quote unquote approval, although it is not considered as an approval. It is also not an endorsement to say that this product is fit for this particular disease. They don't do that. That is not the job of WHO, and they don't have the authority to do that. So WHO is an observer in ICH. They don't have a voting privileges, because they are just an observer. It's not a regulatory body. So many low and medium income countries, they use WHO list for national procurement. And not only low and middle income, but some other countries also use the same list for bulk procurement of drug products. So say, for example, Kerala state wants to, one of the hospitals wants to bulk procure the drug from some company. I'm just giving an hypothetical example. Okay, this is not how it is done. But one of the things that they can do is they can see, has this company been listed in the PQ of WHO? That means that, okay, at least they seem to have gone through the quality assessment. So as I said before, Indian manufacturers have a significant number, more than 60% of the PQ is by Indian manufacturers, and there are a wide range of products, not only HIV, AIDS, but malaria, tuberculosis, reproductive health, hepatitis, diarrheal diseases, and some of the neglected tropical diseases like filaria and all that. Now, recently, WHO also has initiated biotherapeutics like biosimilars. You must have heard of the term biosimilars. And by what I mean by you must have heard is, I'm just addressing my talk to the students mainly. I know the professors would know that. So my talk is mostly direct to the students. So they might have heard about biosimilars for certain types of cancer and also insulin, human insulin. So biotech products generally are very expensive, but some of the biosimilar products, it is like, in a loose term, I can say that biosimilar is like a generic product for a biotech product, but it is not. The generic products for small molecules, they only require a bioequivalence, whereas that is not similar for biosimilars. They have to do certain amount of clinical studies. But anyway, biosimilars are significantly less expensive than the innovator product. So that's why WHO is interested in PQ of biotherapeutics, because one of the goals of WHO is to provide drugs at a much cheaper rate. So this is the Millennium Development Goals of WHO. So there is eradicate extreme poverty and hunger, primary education, gender equality, and empower women. Then fourth is reduce child mortality. Fifth is maternal health. Sixth is HIV, malaria, and other diseases, combat them. Seventh is environmental sustainability, and eighth is global partnership. So these are the main goals of WHO. So this PQ fits into 4, 5, and 6. Okay, that's how they get the funding to do that. So what kind of drugs are included in PQ? Vaccines. So I'm not going to spend too much time on those, because our aim is today mainly talk about medicines. But this was requested by UNICEF and PAHO, that is the Pan American Health Organization, to evaluate the safety, efficacy, and quality of vaccines. So there are as Dr. Pradeep also mentioned that about the vaccine from China, which got approved first by WHO, and then other Indian vaccines followed the line. So that is about vaccines. Medicines, WHO member states requested to evaluate the mainly the quality, safety, and efficacy of low-cost new fixed dose combinations. See, the fixed dose combination is a feature of India. Most of the thing you can see, many other drugs are combined with something else. For it has got its own pros and cons. Whereas in other countries, like for example, in Canada or in Europe, not you will not find so many fixed dose combinations. There are very few. Like for example, hydrochlorothiazide will be combined with blood pressure reducing medication, because often these two are given together. So those are some of the examples you will find in other countries. But in India, you'll find many of them as fixed dose combination. Just about a year ago, the Drug Controller of India, they published a list of stopping this many of the fixed dose combination, because fixed dose combination has got its side effect is, if you want to reduce one medication, you have to reduce both. If you want to increase one, you can have to increase both. So it doesn't give the flexibility. So as a result, the patient gets what is available rather than what is most desirable. So that is one of the drawbacks. But the benefit is, by combining the two medications, you make the total drug quite cheaper. For example, if drug A is 5 rupees a pill and drug B is another 5 rupees, so 10 rupees a pill, two pills, if you combine it, you can make it 6 rupees. So that way you can reduce the price of medication, which is important for a country like India, which has got huge population, and many of them do not have access to good medication. So anyway, WHO started this fixed combination medication review with HIV and AIDS, but they have other fixed dose combination as well, okay, which is used in many other countries. Besides, there is malaria, tuberculosis, reproductive health, hepatitis, diarrheal diseases, neglected diseases like filaria, I said, and also biosimilar and insulin. Some of the diagnostics started in 2010. They started mainly with the substandard performance of HIV kits. Now they have gone into many more. We'll see more details in the next slide. There is also vector control. Vector control is mostly pesticides, which are used on maybe mosquito nets or indoor sprays on walls, larvicides, public health pesticides, active ingredient. So these are all important for some of the countries where there is poor hygiene and there is a lot of um, vectors, like the viruses which are causing problems and diseases. So here is a very concise cartoon, I should say, which was provided by the Bill Gates and Melinda Gates Foundation. They have done funding for some of these WHO initiatives. So here there's a list of diagnostics, list of medicines, list of vaccines, and also vaccine also has got cold chain equipment. Like many of the vaccines, you have to keep them at very low temperature. So when these vaccines are provided in warm countries or hot countries, they need to be kept in some kind of cold boxes or refrigeration. So how do you make sure that these cold chain equipments are adequate to keep the vaccines at the required shelf life? Some of the vaccines have a very short shelf life once it is taken out. Everybody, the public in India would have come to know about it after the COVID vaccines came. Many of the COVID vaccines have got a very short shelf life once it is taken out of the refrigerator. So that is also part of the vaccine initiative. Then vector control, as I said, for larvicides, long-acting insecticide nets, mosquito nets are sprayed with some of these. So they will kill them. But then anything that kills the insects could harm the humans, right? So you have to make sure that they are relatively safe for humans also. So that's a list of some of the products in a concise way. Then we will talk about the pre-qualification flow. So I have gone through about 14 slides now. Are you guys able to follow me? Am I speaking too fast or is it okay?
So, okay, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
So feel free to ask me questions now or later. So we'll keep it for later so that it is efficient. So the pre-qualification workflow starts with expression of interest. Dr. Pradeep alluded on that one. Then once the companies have been expressed their interest, they will be sent the necessary links so that they can provide the dossier. Then those dossier will be assessed and the sites where they are manufactured will be inspected. And if they are acceptable, they will be qualified. And then they have to maintain the qualification status. So again, I'm repeating the same thing. Invitation to manufacturers. So this is not free of cost. There is a significant amount of cost for getting included in the pre-qualification list. Now, pharmaceutical industries, they have to allocate the funds because where is WHO getting the funds for these things? So they don't get anything from anywhere. So they try to do some cost recovery, and then these dossier submission are done in ICH CTD format, which is available in the multidisciplinary M4. Then once the dossiers are submitted, they are assessed by WHO experts. These WHO experts, excepting a few, most of them are invited experts. Like when I went not as a Health Canada employee. I went as a Health Canada, yeah, but expert who is working on my own time. So I have to take leave of, if I'm working at the Health Canada, then I have to take leave. Or if I'm retired, then of course I'm using my own time to go there and do the assessment. So they are from FDA, Health Canada, EDQM, Europe, ANVISA from Brazil, and I have also worked with one of the Indian reviewers from CDSCO. So the reviewers, not only they do the assessment, they also help in training and mentoring some of the reviewers that come from other countries, especially from African countries. So that way, WHO provides a very significant role. Okay. Then these deficiencies are communicated to the company and they are given a certain amount of time to respond. So once the response is obtained, they are reviewed and they find out whether it is adequate or not. In the meanwhile, the GMP inspectors will also go and inspect the manufacturing facility of the API and the finished product, which is, we call it as FPP. So again, these GMP inspectors are not WHO employees. They are, most of the time, they are retired inspectors from other countries who have certain reputation of being good, or they have the necessary information. Often, WHO will also use the review report of other countries if they have gone, like say for example from Europe, if they have gone and inspected a site for API or for a manufacturing of tablets or injectables. So they will request them to provide their input and they will review those documents to decide if it is GMP compliant or not. So that is based on memorandum of understanding between WHO and other regulatory agencies. Once the qualification report is complete, then it is communicated, it is put in the list, then the companies have to maintain the list. Because you see, when let's say I'm the company, and in 2025, I use the API manufactured by Reddy's laboratory. But then in 2 years, I cannot just survive with one API supplier, because that's a very risky process. So I will try to identify 2, 3 other API manufacturers, and but their quality has to be exactly identical with what has been provided in the first case. For example, the physical properties like particle size, okay, the structure and impurity profiles may be similar, but what about the particle size? So if a drug substance is insoluble, then it needs to be micronized. Now, all these concepts of physical properties of API and all these things are best understood by pharmacy graduates, because they have all these in their curriculum in physical pharmacy and other places to understand these things. So anyway, so if the company, if I am the company, if I am including 2 other APIs or 1 other API, so that is a variation. So I have to submit that additional document to WHO and get their quote unquote approval to be in the PQ list. That's variation of API. But in the manufacturing also, once a company manufactures, let's say 10 batches, 20 batches, 50 batches, they find out that some of these manufacturing process that they identified initially as critical are not critical, or something that are not critical are in fact very critical, in order to get the final specification under control. So that is also variation. So actually speaking, post approval changes is a huge part of any industry, as well as the regulatory agency. CDSCO must be beating their head on the wall to make sure that all these post approval changes are all in place. Many times it is up to the company to provide that. There are a lot of rules and regulations. Some of the regulations are kind of misread by the company, and they may not submit those variations. So that's a very important part of the relationship between a regulator and the company, to make sure that every variation is informed to the regulator. So in WHO, they have a rule that every 5 years, the company has to resubmit, say that I don't have any variation. Or they have to say, I have this variation and here are the submissions which I have provided, additional information. So that's an important part. So here is the details of the pre-qualification flow. I have already spoken most of it. I will just read some of these which are in addition to what I have already spoken. So in the assessment of dossier, there are quality part and there is clinical part. Clinical part is mostly bioequivalence, because you see 95%, I would say 100% of the PQ list is a generic product. It has been already approved by an innovator company, and perhaps even the generic companies have got approval. So it's a generic product. So they won't have any clinical studies, so to speak. Most of them would have bioequivalence study that is reviewed by WHO. Then inspection of manufacturing site of the FPP is finished product of the API, and clinical research sites. See, the bioequivalence sites are being referred to here as clinical sites. There are quite some issues with some of those sites, and we'll talk about it in a few minutes. Then the final decision of pre-qualification, then listing and maintenance. Now, in the dossier format, as I said, the company has to do the quality overall summary. That is where they have to provide all the information has to be included in the template. They also provide a quality information summary. What is quality information summary? That is a summary of all the quality of API, excipients, drug product, stability of the API, stability of the drug product, packaging, what kind of container closure system is used for the API and for the um, drug product, what is the shelf life of the drug product. Everything is there in this summary. And this summary is a very, very important document both for the regulator as well as for the company. Many times what happens is there is a lot of change of employees in the companies too. Those people who handle the initial submission, they are not there after 5 years. They are moved on to other places. So how do you keep this history of this product? This QIS, that is Quality Information Summary, is an excellent document which tracks the life cycle of the drug product. This is a Canadian requirement called CPID, Certified Information Product Summary, which is adopted by WHO, and they call it QIS. It's an excellent document. Most of the industry, they love it because it is their document. It is not something that the regulatory people possess. The final signature on the QIS is done by the company so that they maintain it as a life cycle document. Then accepted GMP and acceptable GCP. Now, as we move forward, I would like to spend a couple of minutes on the data integrity. Now, data integrity is an overarching principle that is about the completeness, accuracy, consistency, validity, reliability, and security of all the data that is submitted, or in fact generated by the company, both for quality as well as for clinical. Now, this is crucial for product quality, safety, and efficacy of pharmaceutical industry. There are lots of cultural issues in data integrity. What do you mean by cultural issues? What is acceptable in one country as okay is not acceptable by other country as okay. When you have inspectors coming from US, for example, they look at the data with their own lens. Even a small mistake in the batch record, they investigate it. So it is not that these problems cannot happen. Each time there is a data integrity issue, the company has to spend some money, effort to investigate it and put a record that, okay, this was entered in a wrong way. Suppose there is a wrong entry, they should explain that. But falsification of data has led to suspensions of approval of many drug products and also of WHO PQ. I would like to, really emphasize on the data integrity because many Indian companies have been affected by data integrity issues. Their clinical trials have been cancelled. Some companies have become bankrupt because of data integrity issue. So if you have, let's say that if a company has exporting privileges to Europe, and these European countries or any other country for that matter, even CDSCO, will not be sympathetic about this. They will say, okay, you have data integrity issue in clinical trials. You falsified all these patients never existed. I'm canceling your license. So that way, many drug companies have been affected by data integrity issue. And this is also, I have quite happy to see that it is there in the new proposed BPharm syllabus by PCI. They have included sections on data integrity. It's not an easy thing to comply with, okay? Okay, that's enough for today. I mean, with regard to data integrity, and we move forward. So in the dossier format, there is API information. Mostly it is API, which is generic. Some of the APIs have got certificate of suitability. Certificate of suitability are for those APIs which have a monograph in the EP, European Pharmacopoeia. If they have a monograph, that has got limits for the impurities also. So a company submits all the information to European Pharmacopoeia, batch record, limits of impurities in different batches, detailed synthetic method, all those information is submitted, and it is reviewed by the European group to see if it is worthy of getting a certificate of suitability. If they get certificate of suitability, their path in getting the API accepted becomes much easier. Then sometimes if it is not in the EP monograph, then they have to have their own master file. API manufacturer and suppliers, it's their own confidential information. They give access to the drug product manufacturer based on confidentiality. If the company makes both the API and the FPP, then the full data could be available in the FPP dossier. Like for example, you see Cipla makes so many APIs. Dr. Reddy's laboratory also makes their own API. If they use their own API in their drug product, they can provide the entire information in the drug product section. Then in the finished product, there is pharmaceutical development, manufacturing control. Only established excipients can be used. WHO does not allow novel excipients. That's because you have to do tox studies on those in some cases. So they don't want to go through that route. All analytical methods have to be validated. So then stability data has to be submitted for at least 2 batches. Pilot scale for the tablet is at least 100,000 tablets, or 1/10 the commercial size, whichever is larger. Then at 40 degrees Celsius, 75 RH, which is the accelerated study, and 30 degrees Celsius, 75% RH is long term, 6 months for both they have to submit. In most of the cases, the PQ submissions have got few years of data because they have already done a lot of work on that stability. So the quas section has got introduction, which gives the name of the drug substance, drug product, who is the manufacturer, all those introduction. Then there is drug substance, drug product, and appendices. So step 1 is done by the company. They have to develop the product. It takes a few years. So it's a multidisciplinary project because, the pharmaceutical development, suppose one of the students gets a job in the pharmaceutical development in the industry, he or she is not going to do the entire work. They are going to rely on the analytical chemist to do the analytical method validation for the assay and the impurities. So it's a multidisciplinary project which takes few years, and in most of the cases there is bioequivalence study involved. Step 2, once the product is developed, they have to incorporate all the information on the quas and also prepare the initial QIS, the quality information summary. In the step 3, the WHO reviewers will review the quas, and the GMP assessors will inspect the sites depending upon whether it is needed or not. If it has already been recently inspected by for some other group that is acceptable to WHO, they will use that. I'm highlighting the last line that pharmacy graduates can participate in all the above steps in manufacturing and developing a drug substance, drug product, then putting it in the quas, and third is being an assessor. May or may not be in the WHO, but definitely in CDSCO they can be an assessor. So pharmacy graduates can participate in all of the above steps. They have the knowledge, they need only additional experience and training. So to give you a glimpse of the drug substance, you see these are the drug substance part will have so many sections. General information, manufacturing of the synthesis, critical steps of intermediates, then characterization. You must have, at least those who are in M.Pharm in medicinal chemistry, they would have learned about characterization. Even the B.Pharm final year students might have learned about structural elucidation, IR, NMR, to identify the structure of the API. Then the characterization, control of drug substance, how do you control the impurities? If there is a reference standard against which you are comparing the API, what kind of container closure systems are needed to keep the drug substance, and what kind of stability studies they have. That's for drug substance. And at the end of the drug substance information, they come up with this specification. This is a mock-up API. This is a fictitious API, but identification got IR and XRD, optical rotation, residue and ignition, particle size, related substances, residual solvents, and assay. And all of these have got reference to analytical methods that has been validated. That's very important, because how do you say that this one particular impurity RC1 is not more than 0.15%, because you are using an analytical method which is validated. This validation is also done as per ICH guidance. There is a full guidance on ICH on method validation. If you look at the drug product, there is again pharmaceutical development. What are the components? How did you get the components? Like for a tablet, you've got microcrystalline cellulose, there's a disintegrant, there is a lubricant. These are the minimum 3 things you will need. Then you develop the process. Then you talk about container closure system, excipient compatibility with the drug substance, manufacturing process development, analytical method development, justification of the excipient. What kind of justification you have for the specifications. Then these analytical processes also procedures should be validated. Then impurities, container closure system. Are you going to put it in a bottle, or you're going to put it in a aluminum strip? What kind of stability data are there to conclude that the shelf life of the drug product will be 3 years from the date of manufacturing? So that's all part of the drug product. And then here is an example of, again, it's a fictitious example. It gives what kind of excipients are used. It is a coated drug product, and what kind of functions they have. All these things come out based upon your drug product development. And these are the 3 strengths. In this example, this tablet is available in 3 strengths, 25, 50, and 75 milligram. What are the different amounts of the excipients? And then you finally come up with the specification, and you have to justify the specification. That how do you get this specification? You have to justify them. Assay is 95 to 105% at release. The release specification is always more stringent than the shelf life specification. That's one example. So you see, the drug substance and the drug product amount of information that you need to provide is enormous amount. But that is what it takes to develop each drug product. And that's what the pharmacy graduates, if they are working in industry, or for that matter in a regulatory agency, they can participate in so many places and be a part of the whole thing. To summarize, the pre-qualification evaluates application from invited manufacturers to determine if their product meets the standard of quality, safety, and efficacy. Those who do, they are added in the pre-qualified list. Then PQ list is used by national authorities as well as a criteria for procurement. 4 product streams currently in the PQ list are vaccines, medicines, diagnostics, and vector control. WHO area defines specific products which fall into the scope of PQ. Indian manufacturers have got significant number of PQs. So there is an opportunity. In sense, the pharmacy graduates, this is evidence that there is opportunities available for them to participate in the industry. Then this assessment list, the assessment consists of desk evaluation, audit, as well as site inspection. Now, after pre-qualification, they could be delisted if negative evidence emerges, like, for example, data integrity issue or a GMP is non-compliant. All those things will make the product will be delisted from the PQ. Pre-qualified products must also be authorized by the national regulatory authority in each country before they are used. PQ only forms a subset of less than about 10% of the WHO's essential medicine list. Only 10%. Most international procurement agencies use PQ as a key requirement for their tenders. And lastly, I would like to emphasize again that pharmacy graduates are ideally suited for PQ related tasks, whether it is in development or in the assessment with additional training. I'm not saying this just from my mind because I'm a proof. I'm a pharmacy graduate and I have done some of these things. So if I can do it, you can do it too. You need additional training, and it is not, those who are interested can definitely do that. So with that, I have a few references. I will provide a document to Dr. Jayashekhar. He can share it with whoever the IPA wants. And then finally, I would like to wish you all a very, very happy Onam. And maybe you are preparing sadhya during this weekend at home. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Krishnan, very much. Dr.
Okay.
Prabhakar, Dr. Prabhakar is available. Dr. Prabhakar, Mr. Prabhakar, good evening.
So I'll stop this
Yeah, you can
share,
stop. Yeah,
and
stop.
I will see if there are anything in the chats. I see there are some questions in the chat.
Good evening, Mr.
Please
Prabhakar.
give your comments and questions in the chat box.
Please give your comments. Yeah, there is no comments yet.
Prabhakar is there. Prabhakar, you want to add anything, Mr. Prabhakar? Good evening. Mr. Prabhakar is the director of pharma industry in Palakkad.
Okay.
He's the director of pharma industry. Good evening, Prabhakar.
Good evening, sir. Good evening. Thank you very much, sir, for this wonderful, informative, session. And I think I don't know how you have summarized such a huge topic in under an hour. So I'm astonished the way that you have put things into the perspective that you have told us. It is a huge topic, in its own, but you have summarized it within an hour. So I'm absolutely thankful for that. Without missing any details. That's the most important thing. So, thank you very much for IPA. Thank you very much for giving me such an opportunity to be a part of this session. Thank you, sir, for your wonderful and informative session. So,
Thank you, Prabhakar.
Any questions are there in the chat box?
I see that there is no questions.
Yeah,
Mostly it is acknowledgement.
yeah, they can unmute and ask questions also.
Yeah. Students, you don't have to feel, that you are being cornered. I'm keeping this information session very informal. You can ask me whatever question you have in your mind.
Yes, yes.
And I'll try to answer them.
There are students from regulatory affairs also from 2 colleges. Yes, you can unmute and ask questions, please. There is one question from Dr.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the question is, what advice would you give to students with MPharm pharmaceutics background to start a career in regulatory affairs? Okay. So, what advice? So, first of all, I would say if you're not already introduced to ICH guidance documents, which is now followed by CDSCO also. CDSCO has been following ICH guidance for quite some time now. So that's your first step. Whenever you get time, Even on the side, you may or may not have it in your syllabus. Most likely you will have it in your syllabus. But otherwise, the syllabus only gives you so much opportunity to learn about it. Go to the ich.org and get the general perspective of what kind of topics are in the course. First, you give yourself a general introduction about ICH. Then there are a lot of training documents, and many people, many other faculty members from different colleges in India have given presentations. So you have to just be careful about if it is coming from a reliable source, so that you don't get misguided. But otherwise, I would say the first step is to get more familiar with ICH guidance. And then the next step is, if you're able to say, it will take you 6 months, 1 year to get a good understanding of ICH overall. But then you identify what is your strength, what is your interest. Suppose you are interested more in product development, then you go to Q8 and read more about quality by design and all those things. But if you are an API person, if you are more interested in API synthesis, if that is your inherent interest, you are very good in organic chemistry, let's say, and if that is your interest, then you read more about impurities, API synthesis, that point kind of section. So you become slightly more informed about one topic than the rest. And then your journey starts.
Okay. Thank you.
Next question, please.
Dr. Sudesh, any addition? Dr. Sudesh, you want to add anything? Dr. Jiffy,
Sir.
you have any doubt or any clarification required?
No, sir. Sir, actually, I have a doubt like this QBD you mentioned, no, sir. So in the QBD, actually, maybe it is, if it is coming under the manual.
You are freeze now.
Hello.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
Now
yes.
audible.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sir, can you explain like the role of QBD application in manufacturing? Because the books and everywhere we are seeing like a QBD will make the manufacturing and regulatory process more easier, and there is no actually in the syllabus in I basically am in pharmaceutics, MPharm pharmaceutics, and our syllabus we have just one chapter in the MPharm. So providing some add-on course and all, if it will make the student more benefit in QBD.
Okay. When QBD was introduced as a topic in ICH, I was part of Q8 and then Q8, 9, 10 implementation. Most of the pharmacy graduates, like pharmaceutics graduates and industry, they were not surprised by it because they were already doing it. QBD, if you define it, it's a systematic way of product development, scientific and systematic way of product development. That is the basic thing. So don't get caught by all the policies and everything. You say, okay, so take an example of a drug substance being incorporated into with excipients into a tablet. Tablet is the most simplified drug product because you'll find a lot of examples on drug product in tablets, and it is the most popular dosage form also. So now every company will try to choose direct compression because you just have to mix it and punch it. But it is easier said than done because content uniformity is an issue. So you analyze each part. Maybe you can go backward. Start with the specification and say the specification says that each tablet contains 1 milligram, 50 microgram. Smaller the amount of API, the more challenging it is to make them as a content uniformity. So in order to make content uniformity, what kind of manufacturing process you will choose? Will it be direct compression? Will direct compression segregate during manufacturing? So like that, you have to go through each step to justify why you have chosen this. why you have chosen this certain excipient. Many people nowadays try to avoid lactose because many patients have lactose intolerance. But sometimes, if your drug substance is highly insoluble, lactose helps in improving dissolution. So, like that, so you have to keep each step you justify and use the pharmaceutical, select the pharmaceutical process for manufacturing based on justification. And if you put them all together, it becomes QBD. So, QBD looks like a big jargon for many people who are not in pharmaceutics, or for that matter, who are not in pharmacy. They think, oh, so what's quality by design? What design? But actually, it's not such a big deal if you explain each step and justify why you have chosen the excipient, why you have chosen this dosage form itself. The dose is based on pharmacokinetics studies. So why you choose 50 milligram, 100 milligram, and 200 milligram as the three strengths, for example. That is based on the pharmacokinetic studies on what kind of dose effect ratio you have. So like that, you have to justify each step. That becomes QBD in a very simplified manner.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks
So
for-
don't get caught on by the terminologies. Just
Yes.
think of basic pharmaceutics and explain each step, and eventually it becomes QBD.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Dr. Sudesh has one question.
Yes.
Which part of the drug development is most often found in cases of data integrity? It's a question from
Okay.
Dr. Sudesh.
Right. So data integrity is, I would say, is number one culprit
Yeah.
in many countries, especially in India, because see, not because India has got more data integrity issue. No, the numbers are more. Like for example, you see 60% of the PQ is Indian companies.
Yeah.
So when foreign, so anyway, so that's why the numbers are more. Then there is cultural issue. Cultural issue means what is acceptable as a okay in one country is not okay in another country.
Yeah.
This is from day-to-day life itself. Many things we take it for granted. We do in a certain way, but then when it is emphasized, you look at just the concept of use of plastics. When I go to Kerala now and go to different railway stations, it's very clean. There is no plastics here and there, but 10 years ago or something like that, there is garbage everywhere. So
Yeah.
the country has taken steps. It has become slowly a part of the everyday culture to do a certain thing in a certain way. Now, when you come to pharmaceuticals, that is one of the most controlled areas of a drug product or anything that is given to the public. Pharmaceutical industry is highly controlled. Everything is controlled. So now, as a result, to answer your question, data integrity is found in um, manufacturing. Data is manipulated sometimes.
Manipulated.
Sometimes it is not manipulated but not explained properly. For example, if the assay fails, they have taken the sample, the analyst has taken the sample, and the assay fails. He cannot simply discard it. He or she has to report those results and explain that this test has been repeated, and then the second repetition it passed. Then he has to investigate what happened in the first one. Okay, by mistake the dilution was done improperly or something like that. They have to find the reason for the problem and explain that. So that is simpler. Now in pharmaceutical industry, now all the data is controlled heavily by this computers. The access to make any changes to the HPLC is used in majority of the assays are done by HPLC, API as well as drug product. Assay, impurities, dissolution test, everything is HPLC. I would say 98% is HPLC. Now, but the HPLC data has to be controlled by a central person in the pharmaceutical industry. Even the president of the company will not have access to it. He or
Yes.
she cannot manipulate it. So they have to have that kind of control as a policy. And everybody who is working as an analyst or it's an operator is trained, his training is given, and they are told that it is okay to make mistakes. You are all human beings, will make mistakes, but report the mistakes to your supervisor.
Yeah.
So if the mistakes are reported, then it is not a data integrity issue. But suppose you tear a page from the roster, or you delete a document from the, it doesn't get deleted, right? It gets stored somewhere in the place. So I've known inspectors that they will go straight away to the dustbin
Yes.
and pick the
Yes. Yes.
or
Yes.
shredder, and they will pick the documents from there and say that, okay, let me see where it is. And they will, some of the regulators from other countries are, they somehow get more freedom than other countries because of the whatever nature. So they will say that I want to talk to your operator. Then he wants to go and talk to the
Yes.
operator, and then he will say, okay, can you tell me that what all, how did you sign this document? Now all the signatures are nowadays electronic signatures. So many things are changing, and data integrity is becoming more and more difficult to breach. So that's one aspect. In quality, it is much more easier to control. But clinical sites are notorious. Why?
Yes.
Because quality you can control. The variation or standard deviation in quality is mostly within 5 to 10%. But patient data is, the variability is huge. Even if you select the patient based on a certain criteria, the amount of drug in the blood system is not controllable by anybody. So what do? In certain cases, the patient die because of various reasons. It may not be due to the clinical trial, it may be due to an underlying condition. So all those things have to be explained properly. And if, but most of the time we have seen that in clinical sites, the entire study is, cancelled. So that becomes a huge issue for the companies. So though they have to have good control of the clinical sites, it's more easier to control a bioequivalence test than a clinical test for general safety and efficacy. So that is my short answer. So it is widespread, but it has to be controlled. And it is, you see, at the end of the day, pharmacists, companies, CDSCO, everybody wants to give a good medication to the patient, which has got the minimum side effect, right? So that's the basic requirement. So if that is the case, then data integrity has to be upheld. I see there is one more question. So did I answer that, Sudhish? I hope I answered your question.
I am very interested in exploring career opportunities in regulatory affairs in Canada. Could you kindly guide me on the steps I should take to start a career in RI in Canada, considering my current educational background? He is an MPharm in regulatory affairs.
Yeah.
She is
So,
an MPharm in regulatory affairs.
right. So the answer is yes and no. Yes, in sense, um, pharmaceutical companies are always looking for people who are well informed, who have got good experience in certain things. So if you're fresh M.Pharm from Kerala University, it is better that you get some experience in India, because in any country for that matter, to get incorporated into the working stream is a challenging step. Most of the people who came here in Canada, they all came as students. So they got enrolled into master's, PhD, or whatever like that. So that is another way you can find. Is there a way that you can come for higher education in Canada? Doesn't have to be in Canada, in Europe also. If can you go for some higher education? That gives you two advantages. One is your CV improves. More than CV, more than your resume, you yourself become more attained, more used to a different culture that looks at different things in a different way. And your existing experience will make a huge difference in making this easier. So to answer your question, summarize it, One is try to get some experience in India, and even if it is in industry or even in CDSCO as a student, apprentice or something like that, get some experience. It's a huge difference between actually learning in a classroom and learning in a company. There's a huge difference. So get some experience and then you can try to come abroad, whether it is Canada or Australia or somewhere like that.
Okay, thanks. Dr. Krishna, we have some orientation pharma industry. Few students has opted to join regulatory affairs in pharma company. Apex Pharma company, Apex Laboratories in Chennai, they offer for training for 2 students in regulatory affairs also. They opted to join regulatory affairs.
Okay.
Mm.
That's good. So again, regulatory affairs, if you're joining and if you say that you have good knowledge of ICH guidance, it will be a plus point.
Yes, yes. Then
Because you can say that I know what it takes to have a validated analytical method, what it takes to have a API that meets all the uh, limits for impurities like that. So that's good.
Okay. Dr. Vijay Bambulkar, are you able to hear us? Dr. Vijay Bambulkar? Good evening.
I can hear you.
Are you traveling? Hello? Okay.
Sir, can
So
I
I
ask?
see there is, yeah.
Yeah, it is not related to the talk. Just throughout your 35 years of experience, you have been an academician as a scientist and as a regulator. Which part of your career, like, you were so excited, and which was the most rewarding, according to your experience?
Okay, I'm a very optimistic person. So, but I started my career in India in manufacturing and drug product development. So that's how I started my career. But then I came to Canada to do my PhD and all that in biopharmaceutics, then taught. And everywhere I had the grace of the Lord, God's grace to remain employed. Then during my sabbatical, I went to industry, back to industry in Canada and worked in the industry, and I had to submit a file to FDA. And I found that I used to work for Astra in Bangalore. So I found that the pharmaceutical industry is not very different from what is there in India. Of course, there was a gap of 10 years. So there were more equipment which were a little bit more advanced in Canada than in India. But the principles were same. So I enjoyed working for the industry. And then just by chance or whatever you can say, I got into Health Canada. That is where I could put all my knowledge that I learned in the last years in manufacturing and product development and in academia. Academia, I used to do graduate research. I had graduate students. I used to do transdermal work and mucosal drug delivery system. So when I taught, all my basic knowledge in pharmacy became much better. Because when you have to teach, you have to get the concepts 100% clear, right? To pass the exams, you can, or even to get an A in an exam, 80-90%, you can study like a student and clear certain things. But then when you have to teach, you have to make sure that you have no doubts in your mind. So that's why I became better in pharmaceutics, because I had to teach these kids. And in Canada, it was very challenging because they will all ask me that, how is it related to the clinical work that I'm going to do? So every time I had to connect my pharmaceutics that I'm teaching to the clinical sense of the patient. So slowly it became more and more important. Then in the regulatory affairs, of course, I worked as a reviewer and manager and all that. But the end of the last 10 years of my career in Canada, I was very fortunate not only to get chances into work into ICH and rub shoulders with all these international regulators, but also to work on product recall. product recall is a fantastic area to get all your experience summarized, because, I'll give an example. I don't know how much time I have. Do you have enough time, Jaishekhar, to keep
No,
talking?
it's a chat. No problem. You can chat.
Okay.
No limits,
So,
sir.
just an example, even people who are not in regulatory science, like sir, as an expert, a toxicologist, they are invited many times to participate in drug recall. So there was an example of a drug recall, this heparin contamination. It was a huge issue because this heparin was contaminated, it was a willful contamination. It was not an accidental contamination. So some of the PhDs in synthetic chemistry, they manufactured a material which would pass the USP test for heparin. It will not get detected. And since heparin was such an expensive API, it was only manufactured in China, because it has to be extracted from the intestine of pigs. It's a very, filthy work in sense, as very important, but only very poor people will do it, because you have to take the guts and extract it from there. So when we tried to investigate this whole problem, the people died in US. Fortunately, nobody died in Canada. So it all started in US, because that was the place for huge use of heparin injections. And for every surgery that you do, you need heparin to keep the blood from clotting. Otherwise, a surgeon cannot do the surgery. Eventually, they found it was a willful contamination. The USP monograph was revised to include NMR and certain other tests that will detect those impurities. And China, they found the culprits and they hung them. No, to show the example, they hung them, sentenced to death. But this whole experience, so like that, on an average, I was involved in at least 2 or 3 recalls per month. So that was a huge experience, because you have to convince the industry at what level of recall is needed. Because even if it is a small mistake, they will say, okay, we will recall it at wholesale stage. But then you have to investigate whether at patient level recall is necessary or not. Everybody hates recalls because it's a lot of botheration, lot of discontinuation of medication for patients. So Sudhish, to answer your question, you have to love your job. And
Yes,
I was very fortunate to work in areas where it was of my interest. Pharmaceutics was my interest. I got my MPharm in medicinal chemistry, so I had a good knowledge of organic chemistry. So it's all just fate. But if you're interested and also interested in sharing your knowledge with others, you'll do well.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, sir. Over to Dr. Jiffy. Okay.
There is
Okay,
one
thank you.
question from
There is
Samisha. She asks, do we need to clear any exam and what is the minimum experience? I don't think there is an exam for getting into any company, but there are exams if you want to join MPharm or PhD. You have to write those TOEFL and MCAT and all those kind of things. I'm not familiar with what is currently the requirement, but I think you guys are all very computer savvy. You can find out all that. With regard to experience to what kind of minimum experience you need for the industry, I can't put a number, but if you're familiar with, suppose you go to manufacturing and you are comfortable in what you're doing in 3 years or something, then you can move forward. So that much experience you need.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, sir. Over to Dr. Jiffy.
Okay. Thank you very much, Krishnan sir, for the very informative session and clearing all our doubts. So now I invite Mr. Prashant Kumar, Associate Professor of Pharmaceutics, Maulana College of Pharmacy, Perindalmana, to deliver the vote of thanks. Over to you, sir.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes.
Good evening to everyone. On behalf of IPA Kerala, I feel honored to deliver the vote of thanks for today's webinar organized by the Kerala State Branch. First, our heartfelt Felt gratitude goes to esteemed resource person, Dr. Krishnan Tirunallai, former senior scientific advisor, Health Canada, Ottawa, for sharing such a valuable knowledge and insight on the topic WHO pre-qualification of pharmaceutical product. Thank you very much, sir, for your time and for making the webinar truly impactful. We are equally grateful to our chairperson, Dr. Pradeep MR, former Deputy Drug Controller, Kerala State, for presiding the session with a kind guidance. Thank you, sir. And to our moderator, Mr. Prabhakaran Ambat, Director, Lab Indus Limited, Palakkad, for steering the discussion so effectively. Thank you, sir. A special mention to our vibrant anchor of the session, Dr. Jifty M. Jojo, Assistant Professor of Pharmaceutics, Nirmala College of Pharmacy, Muvattupuzha, for conducting the program so smoothly. Thank you, ma'am. We also extend our gratitude to President of IPA Kerala, Dr. P. Jayashekhar, for his encouragement and leadership in organizing this webinar. A special thanks to Professor Junais V, Vice Principal, Al-Shifa College of Pharmacy, Malappuram, for welcome note and setting the right tone for the session. I would also like to acknowledge with gratitude the presence of all office bearers, dignitaries, organizing team members, and every participant who joined us today. Your support and active involvement made this event truly meaningful. With these words of appreciation, we bring today's session to a close. Thank you once again. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prashant sir. With this, we come to the close of today's national webinar. I sincerely thank all the dignitaries, speakers, and participants for joining and making the session a success. Let us now stand for the national anthem.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Krishnan. Thank you very much. We'll see in December then.
Okay.
Namaste.
Thank you so much,
Thank
and wish
you,
you all
sir.
a very, very happy Onam.
Happy
Thank
Onam
you,
to
same to
everyone.
you, sir. Thank you so much.
Auspicious. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Dr. Pradeep.
Okay, good night to all of you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Good night, all.